A woman is in the forest trying to untie herself. She starts speaking. After much effort, she manages to free herself and begins running through the forest. And that's how the story begins. Welcome to Random Recaps. In this video, I'm going to recap the show. The story is set on a ranch where the Chenoweth family lives. Maggie, her husband James, who recently had relationship problems because James cheated on her with another woman. They have 2 children, Arlo and Meryl. James' mother Ellen also lives with them. She suffers from multiple sclerosis, which makes her hands shake. Maggie shows her son how to trap a bee at the window with a teacup. When she goes to release it, she encounters James, who tells her the animals are acting strangely, as if frightened. Arlo watches his mother release the bee through the window and notices a goat escaping from the farm. In the stable, Maggie notices the horses are acting scared.
All right.
When she returns to the house, she doesn't realize her son has gone after the goat. At dinner, Maggie notices Arlo is missing. James assumes he's playing hide and seek. The Shanley family, Reuben, Valeria, and their son Nicholas arrive for Maggie's help with an injured horse, as she is a veterinarian. While others search for Arlo around the house, Nicholas mentions the horse's wound was self-inflicted, and they don't know why. James and Valeria search for Arlo, and the radio begins to emit static.
What is that?
Nicholas says his family also heard the static on their radio when they came. While treating the horse, Maggie realizes the injury is worse than she thought. Meryl tells her father a goat is missing, leading them to deduce Arlo chased it into the forest. In the forest, Arlo follows the goat until he meets the woman from the beginning, who says she saw someone. Meryl and Nicholas venture into the forest to find Arlo and suddenly hear a noise.
What was that?
What was what?
The noise was caused by a little dog and the goat. Then they meet James and Valeria. At that moment, they see an animal pass by. Meanwhile, Arlo lies unconscious on the forest floor, but when he wakes up, the woman screams in his face, as if transferring something to him. Back at the farm, Claire and Donald, the dog's owners, arrive. James grabs a bat to scare off the animal he saw. Donald believes it's a rabid dog and wants to handle it in the most American way possible. But then Arlo returns, injured, saying, "Goat wasp. She's lying, strange killer. She's lying. Run, hide." The woman remains in the forest, calling for help until a dog attacks her, and masked man starts drawing a line near the farm. The electricity across the farm starts failing as the masked man stands watching. No one has a signal, so they can't call for help. James tries to start the car to take Arlo to the hospital, but it won't start. Neither do Reuben's or Donald's. The power goes out, and the families become frightened, deciding to stay inside the house. James and Reuben search for Valeria's car, while Donald goes into the forest after the dog. Maggie checks on her son, finding nothing wrong. Arlo begins speaking normally, relieving his mother. Maggie stays alone with her son, asking who hurt him, but Arlo says he doesn't know. Suddenly, he becomes desperate again, repeating, "Murderer, wasp, run." Arlo runs frantically and unintentionally hurts Nicholas. Maggie manages to stop and calm him down. Meryl helps Nicholas with his wound, while Nicholas tells him how terrified he feels about everything that is happening.
I'm petrified too.
While preparing the horses to leave, James and Reuben notice that the masked man is near the ranch. They run toward him, and he, upon noticing them, pulls out a chalkboard and points to the line he drew on the ground. The board says, James tries to talk to him, saying they need help as his son is hurt. The man pulls out a gun, insisting they not cross the line. As Maggie tends to her son's injuries, he grabs scissors and attacks her, repeating the same words. Maggie takes the scissors away, asking him to stop. Arlo tells her he's not doing or saying these things himself. Meanwhile, Donald searches the forest for the dog and stumbles upon the woman's body. At that moment, he encounters the dog. Donald tries to back away to avoid an attack. The masked man explains to Reuben and James that the line is a circle trapping them inside, and they must not leave. Donald arrives, chased by the dog. The dog attacks, but Donald throws it outside the line. When this happens, the dog disintegrates as if acid was poured on it. James and Reuben realize why the man wouldn't let them cross the line. James demands an explanation, but the man writes something and leaves without saying more. Tired of being there, Claire wants to return home to call for help. The others notice Claire is about to cross the line and try to stop her. Her dog breaks free, and when Donald is about to stop her, it's too late. Donald's arm begins to melt, and Claire, well, this happens to her. Arlo keeps repeating the same words, finding a dictionary to show his mother the word trap.
Trap. Run and hide. Trap.
He tells her the man in his head says they must hide because a killer is coming to destroy anyone in his path. The next day, Donald, still in shock, stares at what happened to his wife. When Maggie wakes up, she confronts James by telling him that she knows that the person he slept with was Valeria. At that moment, Valeria's husband overhears. James wants to fix his relationship with Maggie, though she's deeply hurt. Reuben doesn't tell his wife he knows. He leaves, handing Maggie a gun for protection. Maggie searches for the traumatized Donald while Valeria and Ellen cover Claire with a blanket. As Maggie tends to Donald's wounded hand, he remembers the woman's body in the forest. James and Reuben decide to explore the forest on horseback to find the edge of the line. Meanwhile, Arlo is looking up words in the dictionary. Nicholas realizes that he isn't looking up words, but rather learning them. So he asks Arlo who is it, and Arlo tells him that his name is Harbinger.
My mom told my dad Arlo said there's a voice in his head telling him things.
Nicholas then asks him where is Arlo, and Harbinger answers,
Sleep safe. Quiet and scathed.
Once more, Arlo suggests hiding because the killer will come for them. Arlo briefly regains clarity, telling his sister to listen to the omen, considering it helpful. Meryl doesn't want to believe it, but Arlo insists she trusts him. A lieutenant named Olson arrives at the farm. Ellen and Valeria try to prevent him from crossing the line, but he says entering the line is easy. It's leaving that's hard. Arlo is Harbinger again, guiding Meryl and Nicholas through the forest to a hole where the omen tells them he fell from the sky. He picks up a rock with a colorful liquid and pours it into a bottle, saying it's poison and intends to drink it. James and Reuben find a nearby ranch looking for people, but James only finds lifeless bodies scattered around. Reuben gets trapped in a barn. Maggie investigates the body in the forest as Donald mentioned. James is dragged to the basement while exploring a house. The Harbinger tells them that if they drink a little of the poison they can cross the line, but then they will die. Drinking too much will kill them like the animals, and not drinking means the killer will come and kill them.
Dead, and dead.
Lieutenant Olson tells Valeria and Ellen he's there to help them escape the line. At that moment, Maggie arrives and looks at the lieutenant with distrust. Maggie tells them about the woman in the forest, and the lieutenant tells us that the woman's name is Carmen Navarro, a woman who was under his care. Maggie confesses that Carmen is dead. The lieutenant says it's good because contact with her while alive would have been bad. Valeria speculates Arlo may have been in contact with Carmen in the forest, explaining his strange behavior. Maggie defends her son, saying he only hit his head. The lieutenant asks to see Arlo, but Maggie lies, saying he's in the stable, and gives a gun to Valeria. In the forest, Nicholas confesses his feelings to Meryl, but at that moment the Harbinger was about to cross the line. Meryl stops him and asks to speak to her brother. Arlo appears and merely asks him where Harbinger comes from. Arlo confirms that Harbinger came from space and the killer drew the line to catch him. He also tells her that the Harbinger came for a secret mission. At that moment, they hear a car and go towards it. Maggie asks the lieutenant about the line. According to him, he doesn't have much information other than that it's a frequency that alters signals to animals and humans. She asks him about Carmen believing that he did something to her. But he denies having hurt her and knows that what Carmen had can move from one person to another. When she realizes that the lieutenant is not telling her everything, she lies to him, telling him that Arlo is above the stable. She confronts him, but the lieutenant insists no one will save them and that survival requires taking him to Arlo. He tries to attack, but Maggie stops him, tying him up and warning Valeria he's not trustworthy. Valeria doubts this, thinking he's not lying since he's a policeman. Maggie then reveals she knows about Valeria's affair with James.
Well, that's the thing about liars, isn't it, Valeria? They look just like everybody else.
The lieutenant wakes up, asking Maggie to bring Arlo before it's too late. Maggie refuses, leaving Valeria alone with him. The lieutenant tries to persuade Valeria to release him, but Ellen arrives, wanting to see what's happening. Not finding the children, Valeria assumes they've fled to the forest and goes to find them, leaving Ellen to watch the lieutenant. Maggie heads to her clinic, traumatized and stressed by everything happening. Donald finds Maggie, unable to speak, and encourages her to feel better.
You got this. Just breathe.
In the forest, the children encounter the masked man, who warns them not to cross the line, asking them to roll the bottle toward him. Nicholas and Meryl refuse, so the man crosses the line to take it, and Nicholas defends himself by stabbing him with a knife, breaking the bottle. Despite the attack, Meryl helps him. At that moment, the Harbinger approaches and tells us that the guy's name is McNabb, an acquaintance of his. McNabb is shocked to realize that the Harbinger is now in the child's body. He tells us that he tried to help the Harbinger when he was in the woman's body, but he got lost, and now he found him again. The lieutenant deceives Ellen, asking her to wipe the blood from his eye. It becomes clear the lieutenant was possessed like Arlo, and now the entity possesses Ellen. Once the lieutenant comes to, he asks about McNabb as he was part of a group helping the Omen. But the entity possessing Ellen shoots him. Ellen unties him, making it look like the shooting was in self-defense. Meanwhile, Reuben finds a hypnotizing, colorful tree. James wakes tied up in the basement with a boy named Travis, who gives him a chance to explain why he shouldn't shoot him. Reuben tries interacting with the strange, colorful tree, noticing it could harm him. James explains the situation to Travis, trying to convince him not to shoot. Travis is a friend of McNabb, who once told him about the trap and space visitors in a bar. Others didn't believe his stories, but McNabb showed his scar from attempting to escape the trap. Still, they thought he was just drunk. The bar owner sent Travis to take McNabb home. Travis asks him interested about the scar. McNabb doesn't know how the trap works, but he does know that there is a source that makes all this happen. And he describes the tree that Reuben found, like something that hypnotizes you until... At McNabb's house, he went to sleep, and Travis saw a strange car passing by. Entering the house, he found gas masks, stole a knife, and McNabb woke up, noticing Travis was the only one who believed him. Travis thought James was possessed by a visitor, making him distrust James's words. Over time, McNabb told Travis everything about the visitors, explaining they are aliens arriving in meteors without bodies, inhabiting humans to move on Earth. McNabb said there are good and bad visitors, and when a good one appears, the bad one tries to destroy it. While watching meteors fall, Lieutenant Olson arrived. He and McNabb trained Travis to defend themselves from the visitors when the time comes. Although you can't kill them with bullets because if you kill someone, the visitor will possess someone else. McNabb and Olson show Travis that they found a woman who has a bad visitor inside her. They have been watching her, and due to her strange behavior, both McNabb and Olson believe that a good visitor is coming, and she prepares to hunt it down. Their plan is to follow the evil visitor so that it leads them to the good one and protect him. At this point, Travis is not so sure if what these two say is real.
Jesus, I don't know about this. Well,
McNabb tells him that his daughter was possessed by a good visitor when she was walking through the woods. McNabb and the visitor had fallen into the line trap. A bad visitor came to offer help, but since McNabb didn't believe him, the visitor became aggressive and took his daughter by force. He made her drink the colored liquid, the one Arlo showed us. and they crossed the trap. When McNabb tried to cross it was when he hurt his arm. After a while the trap disappeared, but the aliens did too. Sometime later, McNabb found his daughter dead. McNabb has some of the alien liquid, so he gives it to Travis in case something goes wrong. The next day the three of them wait for the woman, but the same car that Travis had seen before appears. McNabb tells her that the car belongs to Hayden, a former member of his group who they had to take out because he became too obsessed to the point that he became very extremist.
I told you he's a psycho.
The car left, and the woman's car arrived. She released a black dog in the forest to attack anyone in its path. The three followed her to Carmen Navarro's house, the woman with the good visitor, the Harbinger. They wore gas masks, trying to help the family avoid harm from the bad alien. But Travis wasn't sure what was happening. Nervous, he followed McNabb's instructions but saw the bad visitor was armed and shot a family member. Then he went to the barn and planted the colorful tree to create the trap. McNabb attempts to save the Harbinger, but the woman escaped to the forest. As McNabb pursued her, he noticed the visitor setting up the trap, deciding to flee before it was too late, leaving Travis alone on the ranch. The bad visitor transferred to Travis, attacking the woman, only to be shot twice by her, forcing the visitor to transfer to Olsen. Travis managed to hide and survive. After telling everything, Travis let James go before.
No!
James searched for Ruben in the barn, realizing the tree wouldn't let him go. He used an axe to break through, and Ruben, enraged by James's affair with his wife, attacked him. Returning home, they found Arlo and the others. Maggie treats Ellen's self-inflicted wound. The visitor possessing Ellen insists on seeing the children. Maggie asks her to stay where she is, noticing her hands no longer tremble, assuming it's adrenaline. Distracted, the visitor tries to transfer to her, but Valeria arrives, announcing the others' return. Nicholas tells his parents about the liquid and everything that happened, saying there might still be some left. Ruben, realizing it could be related to the tree, asks Nicholas to show him. Maggie helps McNabb with his wound. Arlo tells his father McNabb is good and the other visitor is bad. Donald tells James what happened with Olsen, but from everything Travis told him, James knows that the killer is still out there. When he tells Donald tells him that the only one who was there was his mother, and he didn't believe him when he said that Olsen was freed, so they understand that the visitor is inside Ellen. While they were going to get the liquid, Ruben tells his wife that he knows what happened between her and James. She apologizes, but before they start arguing, Nicholas shows them the liquid that was left. When he sees it, Ruben is hypnotized. At that moment, a dog arrives and begins to drink the liquid. Nicholas shoots it to make it go away, and they notice that the dog was able to cross the line, but all the liquid was gone.
Come on, man.
At that moment, Nicholas finds a journal where all the information collected by McNabb is. Arlo tells Maggie that Harbinger told him that he has a mission to find a machine to prepare for the invasion of more visitors. But he has to be careful since there are more sleeping visitors in humans. McNabb wakes up distrusting Maggie and only asks Arlo to go with him since he only trusts Harbinger. At that moment, James enters telling him that he knows about the visitors and telling him what happened to Olsen and Travis.
Travis is dead. Olsen too.
But this makes McNabb more desperate. Donald enters and McNabb fires a shot. James tries to stop him, but McNabb escapes. Fortunately, Donald wore a bulletproof vest. Night falls and Maggie, Meryl, and Arlo shelter in the house while Donald and James search for Ellen. The Shanley family arrives. Maggie asks the Harbinger to transfer to her, but it refuses, because if he do, she won't be able to protect him. Nicholas comes into the room and shows them the diary he found. While they were reading the diary, a noise is heard outside the room. Maggie goes out to see what's happening. The others split up to find Ellen and McNabb. Donald finds Ellen. They tie her up and keep her in the house, though she says the visitor probably left her body, though she's not entirely sure. James comes up with the idea that they should just hang out together until the killer makes a mistake and they find out who he is. But Nicholas, reading the diary, discovers that there is a way to find out who the killer is.
We drowned them.
McNabb, in the forest, tries to escape the trap but stops, seeking Travis for the liquid he gave him. The others consider drowning someone crazy, so they build a fire, hoping someone sees the smoke and helps, but Reuben sees it as a waste of time, deciding to burn the tree instead. Donald follows, suspecting Reuben might be the bad visitor. On the way, Donald wants to turn back, but Reuben insists on trying his plan, heading to the barn to set the tree on fire. Meanwhile, Nicholas and Meryl share a moment and kiss.
My man!
Meryl enters the room to see Arlo and he shows her that Harbinger drew a map to the machine. McNabb appears, telling Reuben and Donald they can't destroy the tree, showing he has some liquid. Meryl tries to find the map's destination, realizing the machine is on Belknap Mountain. Valeria tells her son she knows the killer's identity.
Wait a minute!
Taking him outside with a knife and sedative. When Nicholas asks who the killer is, she responds,
You are.
Transferring, Nicholas pushes his mother outside the line, taking the sedative and knife. McNabb gives the liquid to Reuben to break the tree without succumbing to its effects, obtaining more liquid. Meanwhile, James and Maggie talk about their relationship and how to reconcile. But there is no time for reconciliation. They have to escape the trap. So the Harbinger comes up with the idea of catching the killer so he can't possess another person. At that moment, Nicholas calls Meryl through the window. She talks to him and he lies to her, telling her that the killer is her mother. He approaches her and manages to pass through Meryl. When Nicholas comes to his senses, she knocks him out. Arlo witnesses everything and tells his parents. Meryl searches for Arlo, finding her grandmother hiding him. As she descends, Maggie stops her. The visitor threatens to kill her if she doesn't give him Arlo. But he comes up with a better idea, kill Meryl. So Maggie lets her guard down. When Meryl is about to leave, James grabs her to drown her and get the visitor out of her body. McNabb, Reuben, and Donald arrive and find Nicholas hurt, but he doesn't remember anything. Ellen sees them and warns them not to go to the house. Maggie and James try to drown the visitor, but he resists and takes off James' mask. They manage to drown the visitor and then take their daughter out of the bathtub to try to revive her. The Harbinger realizes that McNabb has the liquid and asks them to leave at once. Reuben stays in the hope of finding Valeria. Maggie manages to save Meryl, but the visitor has entered James' body. James resists the visitor and warns his daughter and wife to flee. The others find Valeria. The Harbinger senses something is wrong and runs away. James, fully possessed, pursues Maggie and Meryl. Reuben intervenes, but James nearly kills him until Maggie shoots him. The Harbinger calls James and makes him follow him. Maggie hesitates to shoot her husband. The Harbinger confronts the visitor. At that moment, Maggie arrives and injects him with a sedative. Arlo tells his mother his plan to lock up the visitor so he can't transfer to another body. James arrives to try to transfer to Maggie, but she stops him and manages to lock him in a freezer with Reuben's help. After that, McNabb distributes the liquid so everyone can escape. Reuben is very sorry about what happened to his wife, and by drinking the liquid they will be able to get out of the line. Except Ellen, who decides to stay and take care of the animals. The protagonists decide to go to a hospital to see if they are okay, but on the way they meet two acquaintances of McNabb from an internet forum where they wrote to each other to pass information.
It's okay. They know what's going on. They're here to help.
At that moment, Hayden arrives and hits them both. A girl also gets out of the car and shows them that the people who said they were coming to help them actually wanted to sedate them. The girl warns them that the visitors are awakening and asks the protagonists to follow them or they could be in danger. To which Maggie responds,
We're not going anywhere until you tell us what the is going on.
And that's how the first season ends.